Thanks so much, everyone. It's so great to be here back at Maker Faire. It's been about 6 years since the last time I was at Maker Faire, and I feel like a homecoming being back around the community. So, yeah, you can cheer for that. It's good. So I'm here today to talk about my new book called The Tinkering Workshop that just came out 2 days ago, last Tuesday. Yay. Thank you. And I wanted just to give a little bit of behind the scenes, the process of making the book, and also what that taught me even more about tinkering. So tinkering is a word that people use to describe a certain kind of approach to learning. Tinkering started off 15, 20 years ago using this term at the Exploratorium, at Tinkering School in San Francisco, and I think of it as really a playful way to explore art, science, and technology, and it doesn't have a specific outcome. So, for example, this is a workshop of doing art machines where there's motors, there's paintbrushes, there's cardboard boxes, and we set these things out, and we don't know exactly what the people will do at the end of the workshop. We like to have the learners, the participants in the projects, they're the ones who drive the process, and their questions, their ideas, and things they want to do next, that's how we make our way through the activity. It's really important with tinkering that it doesn't just have to do with the content. So there is scientific and engineering content in all of these activities. For example, connecting circuit pieces, switches, motors, dissected stuffed animals. You can learn a lot about electrical circuits. But we think it's just as important to focus on the process. So what it's like to ask questions, to test out ideas, make prototypes, and share what you've made with others. And then the last part that's really important is the attitude that you have when you come into these activities, that maybe you can build confidence in your ability to work with materials and understand the world around you. Just a little background about who I am and how I got into this type of work. I started working at the Exploratorium in San Francisco in 2006. I helped develop a space there called the Tinkering Studio, where people can stop, slow down, work with materials, and develop their own projects. I think the first time I was at Maker Faire was in 2007, so I definitely think the Maker Faire community has been a huge part of my journey in becoming a tinkerer and an educator. I've done lots of workshops, experiments around the world, everywhere from Saudi Arabia to northern India, working with Tibetan Buddhist monks, to where I live now in Freiburg, Germany, in the southwest corner of Germany. And I found that everywhere around the world, if you engage people in these playful, open-ended activities, they can get really excited about what they can try and what ideas they develop. So about 2.5 years ago, I got approached by the editor at Story Publishing called Deanna Cook, and we started talking about how to make a book that captures some of those ideas and process around tinkering. This is a bit of a challenge because, as you see, tinkering is messy, it's hands-on, it requires an environment. A lot of times it requires facilitation. So we had to really think deeply about how we can put all of those things into the content, into the pages of the book. I wanted to focus today on the behind-the-scenes look at the photo shoot that we had. We had about 5 days at Story Publishing headquarters, which is in Western Massachusetts at a museum called Mass MoCA, which was an amazing place to do these workshops. We could spend all day setting up tinkering activities, taking photographs, working with kid tinkerers, and then at the evening, explore an amazing contemporary art museum. We tried to make it as much like tinkering as possible, so we had the kids use the tools, do the process. It felt very similar to a tinkering workshop, except for we had to do everything about 20 times, and there were instructions like, turn your right hand 45 degrees and your body 180 degrees. And I would have never been able to do this, but these kids were amazing about the way they could do all of those projects and also find the exact right camera angle. So the main idea that we thought about with this book is to focus on simple materials. So to focus on things that you already might have around your house. Things like clothespins, wires, old spools, cardboard boxes. And we featured 20 materials that are the jumping off points of tinkering and have ideas about what you can do right now with these materials. I really had to fight to add googly eyes in this book as a tinkering material. Yeah, let's give it up for googly eyes. Thanks, everyone. And I think it's really important. I mean, I think that these projects grow so much when they're characters, when they have personality, when you can put a bit of yourself into the projects. Another really important part of the book was this idea that you have multiple examples. So we didn't want to do step 1, step 2, step 3, and then at the end, you see the one thing that you make. So for all the projects, we wanted to show 3 or 4 or 5 possibilities for what the project could turn into. And hopefully what that means is that the readers, the people who are doing these projects, they come up with the 6th, the 7th, the 8th example, and they make their own designs. It was very important while doing the photography for this book that we showed kids actually working on the projects, that we showed their hands connecting wires, using tools, that it wasn't just the final presentation of the project that was working perfectly, but that you got to see that the tinkering process is tricky, and there's lots of complications, and there's lots of moments where you're really focused. I think when this tongue comes out, when you see the tongue coming out a little bit, that's when you know that people are really in the flow state and they're totally focused on working the activities. So we wanted to do as many projects like this where you could see deep engagement for the kids working on the projects. As well, we wanted to have a wide variety. That's my son. Clap for Elio here. We wanted to have a wide variety of themes and topics, size and scales, things you can do in your backyard or garden at the park, things you could do on the kitchen table, things that you could actually build into your house, like this over-the-door confetti dropper. These are all to show that there are so many different entry points into tinkering. And I can imagine with all the projects in the book, nobody will start at exactly the same place. Maybe they'll flip through and find the projects that work best for them. We wanted really to have an emphasis on art. So we also feature lots of artists and tinkerers who show what are the possibilities for going deeper with these types of projects. So we have everything from eye bombing, sticking googly eyes around the city, to building marble machines on the beach, inflatable fashion, and paper circuits, all with a little bit of the stories from the artists behind them, showing how they started tinkering and what their process was as well. Each one of these projects has ways to go deeper. So we feel that there's the low threshold part to entry, the starting points where you can go tinkering right away. There's the wide walls, so you can develop your own ideas for the projects. And then as well, if you wanted to really dive into these projects, you can add in more complicated mechanisms, you can add in electronics, microbit, servo motors, and have ways to go deeper into the activities. Part of our process was also being open and being surprised by new ideas. So one of my favorites is this image of the kaleidoscope. This is actually the photographer of the book doing the official photos. And I got a lens and a cardboard tube and took a kaleidoscopic picture with my cell phone. And this actually ended up in the book. As well, there's this LED city. This is actually the project that we're doing today at Faire, making a collaborative LED city at the Coal Shed #2. And this was another example where we all started adding a road, making a stoplight, doing our own designs for the building, both the kids and also the facilitators and the project team. And I think when you're in that sort of mode where you don't know what the projects will quite look like, that's when really interesting tinkering can happen. Throughout the whole photo shoot, there was this idea of having a conversation with materials. So working with the parts, whether they were straws and clothespins, cardboard boxes, pieces of hardware, trying to figure out when we see what we can do with these parts, what will they also tell us, and how will they let us know what is the possibilities for working with each one of the materials. And finally, I think it's really important to have this idea of play as a way through the activities. I think playfulness in tinkering, in making, in STEAM or STEM education, that's what really not only creates an environment that is fun and comfortable to be in, but it also is really where the deepest learning can happen. When you are playing, you are taking risks, you are trying things that you're not sure if they're gonna work or not, and you're going a little bit beyond what your normal, what you think you know you can do to try something that you're not sure about and would be really amazing and cool when it actually works. These are just a few of the finished pages so you can see what the book looks like on the inside. As you can see, we wanted to have the instructions kind of as small as possible off to the side. Important to have these first ways to get started, but then to go the majority of the page showing the examples and showing these little call-out boxes that are facilitation prompts, questions, ideas and suggestions about what you might want to try next. I think for me, that's the most interesting and rewarding thing about putting together this book is that I don't know what the readers, what the tinkerers, what the makers will come up with from doing the projects in the book. I think that these will spark lots of new and unexpected ideas that I wouldn't have been able to imagine to begin with. Just as a logistics, the book is also on sale here at the Maker Shed. So if you want to pick up your copy, you can do that here at the fair. As well, me and my team from Wonderful Idea Co. will be in Coal Shed 2 making a collaborative light-up paper circuit city for the entire 2 days of the Maker Faire. If you're interested in tinkering and you have friends who are interested in tinkering as well, it's really helpful to share about the book, leave a review, tell your library, tell your bookstore. We want to get as many people tinkering as possible. And yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation with all of you. If this is something that you'd like to do at your home, in your classroom, in your after-school program, I would be really happy to continue the conversation with all of you sometime later on in the fair or online with my email and my website, which is wonderfulidea.co. So thanks so much for listening, and have a great time at Maker Faire.
Awesome, thanks, Ryan. We do have time for one question, maybe, if anyone has a question. There we go. Let me get the microphone to you.
Thank you. Ryan, the book is great. I'm curious if you rewind to the very beginning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
If you rewind to the very beginning, when you have a deliverable date, a publisher who wants a book at the end, what kind of tinkering principles did you apply to, I'll call it a professional endeavor, when you didn't know what the chapters were going to look like, you didn't know what the callouts were going to look like? Are there any lessons you learned that you sort of brought into this environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely a challenge for me because I have a tinkering mindset myself, so I'm always used to do one more thing, make one more change. I always wanted to keep adding or tinkering with the book itself. One thing that just was a tool that helped us in the process, on this slide you can see this paper binder, which is called the first pages, and that was a rough layout where we sort of knew roughly what the photographs would be. It was a lot of sketches, a lot of silhouettes in Illustrator. So it was good to have a guide, but it was also really important that we could then break free from that and tinker ourselves in the process.
I love it. Godwin, you're going to have to shout.
How did you decide which of all your wonderful projects?
Well, I think having the projects with these three elements, so which things could have easy starting points, which things you could start tinkering right away, which projects had the widest walls, so the most possible outcomes, and then which projects connected to artist works, tinkerers, makers out in the world that we could show going deeper at. So when the projects kind of hit all three of those marks, they fit in, but of course there were a lot that we had to leave on the cutting room floor.
Oh, one more question. Shout it out.
Were you a tinkerer as a child? What is
Yeah, I do. Saw now some photos of me as a child building, tinkering, milling with cardboard. Although when I was in school, I felt like science was not for me, and I really rejected that as a subject because I thought it was all about finding the right answer, filling in the lab report exactly right. So actually, coming to the Exploratorium, that showed me that science is connected with art. It's a way of understanding the world. But I think I come to this with the idea that I didn't have this joy for science and a love, and so I really want to inspire people to find their own pathway to learning about science, technology, and engineering through some of these projects. Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks.
Let's thank Ryan again.